Welcome to Cheat the Spread, powered by 613 Sports.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 5 here of Cheat the Spread. You know, we're back for another week of action. We got more sports starting up as we get going, but we'll get into all of that in a second. First, let's introduce ourselves. You know, I'm Cameron Shadat, and we're joined today by Jack Lovett. How's it going, Jack?
Doing pretty good, man. We had a strong week last week. Really, the only flat point was our joint pick of the Bears, but even that almost came a backdoor and one catch away from hitting. So we're both in the positives. 3-1 last week, so we're looking to keep that going. And obviously, now you have some hockey to feast on, and I know you're ready to get going with that. You have some good intel, some good sources. So let's see what you got for us.
For sure. So before we get into that, though, everyone, make sure we said it last week. We're going to keep saying it until you guys keep voting. facersmag.ca/awards. Go vote for 613 Sports, best blog. Trying to take home that W. So guys, make sure you please keep voting for us. We really appreciate it. But like Jack said, and like I touched on there quickly, you know, hockey is finally back. You know, we're repping today. Go Sens, baby. We're finally back. Since we've not played since March, so I can't wait to watch the game tonight. Well, today's Thursday, but it'll be on Friday night. Sens versus Leafs. And we're going to touch on that a little bit later. But some quick terminology for you guys to know before we get into it. So we usually be betting football and stuff like that on here, and that's usually called the spread. So the spread in hockey is a little bit different. It's called the puck line. And so typically for any NHL game, you're going to see the puck line or the spread. It's usually going to be -1.5 for the favorite team. But we also have a thing called reverse puck line. So that's when you're going to flip the puck line, and basically the team that's the underdog at +1.5, you're going to take them at -1.5 to win the game basically by 2 goals. And the odds usually flip and they become so much better. Like example, last night being Wednesday, Vancouver was underdogs against the Oilers going into that game. So they were going into the game at +1.5, like minus maybe, that was probably around like -115, something like that, for them to lose only by less than 2 goals. But I flipped that and bet on Vancouver to win by 2 goals, so -1.5. And you got those odds at +300 instead because they were dogs heading into that game. So it's a good way to make some money in there. You know, if you have a little bit of a gut feeling someone's going to pull an upset, something like that, it's a good way to make some money when you're betting on hockey, considering the money lines are always usually so
plus
close.
300 is crazy, just so you guys know. Like that, to hit a 3-1, that's big time. So
for sure. Unfortunately, the funds were looking a little low in the account at that point. I had a few other bets already in action, so I couldn't put as much as I wanted on it, but we did it. We're able to hit and, you know, get back in the plus column.
For sure.
And with that said, we're going to get into our overreactions and underreactions, but yeah, just want to touch on that for you guys. You know, money lines, puck lines, all that good stuff. We'll explain them as we go along, and you can always drop a comment down below. Jack and I are always pretty fast at responding to them to try and keep you guys updated with our picks and stuff like that. And, you know, we had good weeks last week, both on 3-1, like Jack said. Joint picks a little lacking, but we're ready to keep rolling. So let's get into our overreactions and underreactions.
For sure. So I'll kick us off. I've got an underreaction for us this week. And my underreaction is a line that I thought was going to be higher when it opened. And I'm looking at the Saints versus the Bucks. Breeze versus Brady. The old heads. I saw Brady had a funny tweet where he photoshopped them both like beards and stuff. So that was pretty funny. But I thought this line was going to be over a field goal. Like, what did I miss? The Buccaneers looked pretty bad last week. They let Taylor Heineke, who played really well, like, I'll give him that. They let him do a lot of things on them. They let him keep the game closer than it should have been. And they stretched the field on them. And while, yeah, Brady looked good, the Saints team gives them a lot of trouble. They can actually get pressure on them, something I thought Washington could do, and they didn't really. Chase Young didn't get a sniff of Brady like he said he would, but the Saints can do that. And I know last week we weren't very high on Breeze, and I'm still not high on Breeze, but I think the thing I learned last week is Sean Payton is a great coach, and he puts Breeze in really good position to succeed. Like, I don't know how Deontay Harris on screen passes got felt like 70 yards on just like little dink and dunks, and he knows how to use Taysom Hill. He throws stuff in there, so I think the Saints only laying a field goal at home to a team that they've dominated, I think that's an underreaction. And Michael Thomas is back now too, and he looks pretty good. They've got a lot of weapons, Kamara, so I think that's my underreaction.
No, for sure. I mean, I know obviously the playoffs is a different beast, but we've seen it a few times in the past now already this season, twice to be exact, where the Saints have absolutely just pummeled on the Buccaneers. And, you know, obviously the playoffs are different, and you always got to, you know, have some faith in Brady. But, I mean, how can it only be -3 points when we've literally seen the Saints pull them out in the first quarter of a game already this season? But definitely get where you're coming from, and there's definitely some good points to be made there. But moving into my overreaction for this week, sorry. I know I've shit on them on the past a little bit, and I'm still not their biggest believer, but I think the Rams getting +6.5 against the Packers is a bit of an overreaction. You know, obviously they didn't look great last week, but that was with Jared Goff from right off of thumb surgery. His hand was a little banged up, and the Rams, you know, they weren't playing great against the Seahawks. But them being +6.5, this line was originally at 7, Jack told me at one point, and now to see the 6.5, I still think that's way too high. This game should be much closer. I think personally this game and the Saints game should kind of be flipped. maybe the Saints should be more of like a +6 and like a -6.5, and the Rams should only be +3. I mean, we've seen it in the past. The Rams have an elite defense. I don't like to hype up the Rams, but if anybody can slow down Devontae Adams, it would be Jalen Ramsey. He's locked up DK Metcalf twice this year already. They have an elite run game. Well, I wouldn't say elite. They have a very good run game with Cam Akers back there. Touch on that a little bit more later. But a good defense and an elite run game is exactly how the Niners embarrassed the Packers last year in the playoffs. And I think we see a lot of similarities with that. Maybe the Niners team is a little bit better than this Rams team. They can definitely cause the Packers some fits, and I don't think they should be getting +6.5 against this Packers team.
I agree. And as we're going to see, I didn't realize this when I was actually making my picks. I'm pretty heavy on that game. My lock, dog, and tease are all in that Rams-Packers game. So I'm going to be watching that game very closely. So we're going to
AFC this week.
So the AFC is pretty dicey. And moving towards our stayaways, my stayaway is going to involve the team behind me. Last week did not go how I wanted to go. I thought the Steelers could at least take care of the Browns, and the Steelers just pooped their pants on national television. Like 28-0 within a couple minutes. The missed fumble, like that was just. And I wasn't high on the Steelers, but that was just a sad thing to see. So now instead of the Ravens going to the Chiefs, which I probably would have been on the Ravens there, and the Bills dealing with the Steelers, now the Bills and the Ravens are playing. And while I do still lean the Bills, I think Josh Allen does have to get the edge over Lamar, and I'm a fan of Lamar. I'm going to stay away from this game. Obviously, I have my fandom involved, so it's hard for me to see the board clearly without that bias. I think the Ravens can run on them. We saw the Colts run all over Buffalo. Lamar is going to have some success, and that's going to be one of my prop looks later, actually, but I'm staying away from Bills-Ravens.
I think that's very fair, especially if you just want to watch that game. It's definitely not a bad idea to just stay away from it. My stay away, we're going to get finally into some hockey action. I'm staying away from Sabres and Capitals round 2. They are playing tonight, which is Thursday. They're also going to play basically a back-to-back tomorrow night on Friday night when the day this video comes out. And, I'm staying away from this game. I think Buffalo, had a long summer of rest. They didn't play since March, like the Sens. Washington, they lost Holtby. They got plenty of new faces out there in Chara, Craig Anderson, all this kind of things going on. Buffalo had a Taylor Hall and stuff like that too, though. So I want to stay away from this one. I want to kind of get a sense of what both these teams are going to be like this year first before we start betting on them. NHL could be a very weird season. There's no fans, lots of different dynamics happening. So this game specifically, kind of hard to get a read on either of these teams yet. So I'm going to stay away and probably wait a few days or a few games before we start putting any action on the Sabres or Capitals.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, the beginning of any season, obviously with COVID and everything, you kind of want to watch very closely and just study more than you do lay down big bets and maybe start in with a lower unit size. That's something a lot of people recommend. So, yeah, I definitely agree with the logic there.
And then moving into our lock, dog, and tease, we're going to switch it up this week. We'll let Jack go ahead and take his lock first for you guys.
Sounds good. I'll start us off with my lock. And again, I'm not going to take, I'm going to get a bit different here. I'm not going to do a flat spread. I'm going to look to a team total here because last week my lock, that was the one play that didn't hit. And if you watch that Rams-Seattle game, like that was a defensive battle. Like there were 3 points scored in the first quarter, I think, and then 27 in the second. It was an explosion. Darius Williams, Cam and I were talking before, with just a great pick six, just reading DK Metcalf and that screen pass. So I'm going to look at the Green Bay Packers under 27.5 or 28 points, depending on what you can get. I would wait till game day because I think there's going to be Packers money coming in, maybe some over money, and that's going to drive this to 28. And I'm going to take under. The Rams are allowing just 18.6 points per game on the season. That's the best in the league, tied with the Ravens. In the last 5 weeks, 14.5 in the NFL. They're allowing teams 14.5 points a game. They played the Seahawks twice. They played the Cardinals. One of them was the Jets, which surprisingly actually scored, I think, the most of those teams. But like that's amazing. This defense wins games for them basically with like an okay offense. Akers has been really impressive, but their quarterbacks are okay. Like that's insane. I know Rodgers is amazing. I know they have home field. That is kind of concerning. This Rams D traveling up to the frigid elements, like they'll be interesting. But Ramsey, I don't have the numbers, but like the stuff that he does to number one wide receivers on next gen stats is insane. Like he holds them to like 2 receptions, 30 yards. Like it's crazy. I think he's going to take care of Devontae Adams. So I'm going to take them under that team total.
Sure. And this is kind of where Jack and I differ a little bit with my lock. This is Jack's stay away, but I'm on Buffalo -2.5. I think that little 0.5 hook there gives Buffalo some great value. If this game was at 3 or 3.5, I'd probably stay away, but at -2.5, I think that's some great value for Buffalo still. I think Buffalo should win this game. They're the better team. Lamar has definitely been on a roll recently. But so is Josh Allen. Don't discount Josh Allen. And I think their offense is more potent. We've seen in the past with the Ravens, their passing game is just not strong enough to match up with the elite teams like the Chiefs and stuff like that. And, Stephon Diggs has just unlocked a whole other level this year with the Buffalo. And I just don't see Buffalo losing this game, especially -2.5 is great value for this team. So I think this should be a lock.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it's comforting to hear that, obviously, for my fandom. And if I was to bet this game, my bias, but I would be on the Bills just because I think Allen under pressure, I think he's going to deliver, if I had to say. Plus, there's also the cold element. There might be snow. Lamar's saying he hasn't played in snow, so it's another angle you could look at as we approach game day. For my dog, again, I told you I was heavy on the Rams game, and I'm taking the Rams with the points. I'm going to get 6.5. I could have got 7 earlier in the week. Maybe you wait till game day, and 7's come back up, in which case I would grab that 7 for sure. Getting a full touchdown with that defense. Donald looks like he's going to go. You have obviously Jalen Ramsey, and then you have all these other role players who just come in and make huge plays. I'd sprinkle a bit on the money line, not too much, because hard to see Aaron Rodgers going out, but this is going to be a close game. Take the points with the Rams.
For sure. Our first hockey play of Cheat the Spread, I had to do it just for opening night. I'm also with my underdogs before we get into my actual dog pick of this week. My dogs have been cashing recently. I've been cash money with them. I had Oklahoma 2 weeks ago when they were still heavy underdogs when we made that video. I had Washington last week at +8.5. We've been cashing on the dogs, so there's some value to be had here. If there was no NHL this week, my dog pick would be the Browns +10. I think they can keep that game close, and I don't think 10. I think 10 points is way too much. We'll touch on that a little bit later though. But my underdog pick, we got to go with the hometown team. We're picking the Sens Friday night. They're going to smoke the Maple Leafs. The Leafs are overrated. Austin Matthews is not going to do anything. Matt Murray's going to just, He's not doing anything. I'm not even going to say the words. You guys know what I'm thinking though. But I'm not going to jinx it. Matt Murray's going to shut down Austin Matthews. Timmy Superstar is going to go crazy. He's going to, Austin Matthews, 4-goal first game. Timmy Superstar, 5-goal first game, and they're actually going to win that game. Sens money line. Book it.
Wow, that's a bold move. You can hear the certainty in his voice. I mean, this guy knows. This guy's CEO of 613 Sports, man. He's the area, so I wouldn't doubt his pick there.
Better represent for the city.
Absolutely. Now we're going to move to our teasers. I don't think Cam's going to be able to do hockey with this one because I don't think you can tease hockey, but we're going to stick to the NFL. So, again, I'm still in the Rams game. And this is just a good opportunity. If I think the Green Bay isn't going to score that much, the Rams offense is a little dicey. I don't see the Rams exploding either. I think it's going to be a tight in the cold, and I think it's going to be pretty low scoring. So I'm taking the Rams all the way up to 13 points, and 13 is a key number, so I'm glad I can get there. And what I'm doing, since the line is 6.5, I'm going to do a 6.5 point teaser instead of 6. So a bit more juice, but you're still getting good value. So I'm going to take it to 13, and I'm going to take the total to 52. So that's like a 28-23 game would cover. And I think that's really the max we're looking at. I don't think Green Bay gets over, 28 would be really pushing on this defense. I think we're going to see Green Bay gets maybe 24 tops, and then Rams maybe get 24-20 games. So that's a lot of cushion to get it all the way up to 52. So Rams +13, under 52.
And then, like I said with my dog pick, I had to get it in here a little bit. We're going to the dog pound. We're going to Cleveland. I'm going to tease Cleveland all the way up to +16. I don't think they're going to lose by more than 2 TDs to the Chiefs. And we had some great value with this last week because, as Jack said, the Bears were kind of, tough. They didn't get that extra point. It would have been a push. We got them +10, but we had them +16. So it's all good, But I'm going to tease Cleveland up to +16. I'm also going to lean towards the over on this one. You guys can kind of decide on your own how you feel about that. But the over-under right now is around 57, which is very high. So even if you tease it down only 6 points, it's still going to be around 51. But I feel like this number's a little bit inflated because of, the shit show last week, Cleveland and Pittsburgh, putting up 70 points, whatever that game ended up being. A lot of garbage time points early, though, so that kind of changes things. So I think if you can tease it down a little bit, around 50, I feel like that's pretty safe bet. The Chiefs, obviously, they can score. They can put up an offense on anybody. And the Browns defense is not very good, but their offense has been looking pretty good recently. And so the fans will be back. So don't be surprised to see this one be a bit of a shootout as well. So I like Browns +16, and I'd lean the over, but I feel like either way is pretty safe bet.
I agree. I like the over. It's really high at 57, so I think it's a good way to use the teaser to get down to maybe 51 because I don't see the Chiefs scoring less than 30 off this bye with 2 weeks to prepare on this Browns secondary. That's not that great. And the Browns should be able to score on KC too. KC defense isn't anything to really brag home about. So I think that's a good look.
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't say that the Chiefs defense is any better than the Steelers defense at all. And I mean, we saw how that turned out last week.
Yeah, 100%. And so keeping it rolling, we're going to go to our props to keep an eye on. Last week, we both had a pretty good week with our props. I mean, Cam's didn't hit, but it was definitely a good bet, as he's going to say, is Trey Burton anytime touchdown. And the Colts tight ends did gash our defense. He was right on with that analysis. It's just it ended up being Jack Doyle instead of Trey Burton, right? So I ended up going 2-1. Phillip Rivers didn't throw a pick, but Allen and Diggs were able to hit their mark. Allen for completions, Diggs with receiving yards rather. So that was nice. I was able to be positive there. This week for my prop looks, I'm going to start us off with Lamar Jackson over 11.5 rushing attempts. And I have to shout out that guy Betts on Twitter. He's the originator of this. I'm not the originator, but I saw it and I really like the logic in this pick. Because normally, and last week I hit with Lamar Jackson rushing yards, so as did Cam. That was the laugher. So normally I would look to rushing yards with a player like Lamar, but I think attempts makes a lot of sense here because you're looking at the snow factor, you're looking at the cold factor. And if you watch the Bills, they played Lamar last year and their game plan contained him pretty well. I saw Tremaine Edmonds was able to cover him. The D-line sort of got the good angles on him and we were able to contain him really well. So I think we're going to see him try a lot, but I don't know if he's going to have a ton of success running, which is why I like the attempts as opposed to the yards. And yeah, I know Cam has another rushing yard prop in this game let's talk about.
For sure, yeah. So like Jack kind of mentioned there, just to mention with our props, we don't apply these to our record. Our record's more so against the spread kind of thing. But these props, it's just kind of if you're watching the game, you like to play some props and stuff like that, like to throw some money on them, watch individual performances. These are some bets we think that have good value and that have a good chance of hitting, and you can actually return some decent money, which is where we saw the Trey Burton prop last week, anytime TD plus 400. It ended up being Jack Doyle who scored, but the idea was there. The tight ends did gash them. I just unfortunately didn't get the right one for that touchdown, but there was still some value to be had there. And moving into my pick for this week, actually a prop that I'm watching. I'm actually on it myself already. Josh Allen's rushing yards around 34.5 right now. I think I might end up going up, so I'm going to get on that one pretty soon. But like Jack said, it could be a bad weather game. We could see some snow out there. And as we've seen in the past, when we get these bad weather games, they don't throw the ball as much. And Josh Allen's never been afraid to run the ball. He's built like a freaking truck. So we could see him, try and keep up with Lamar and just start rushing the ball. And 34.5, one big run like we saw with Lamar last week can change that entire game.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the yards are definitely a look for Allen because I think in this game, Allen's going to have some decent-sized runs. And I think the Ravens' D-line is going to have some success against our O-line. And I think what it's going to do is push Allen out of the pocket to make some plays. So I really like that angle as well. I have two other props to keep an eye on that I like. And the first one is going to be Devontae Adams under receptions in Ramsey Island on Saturday. I think Ramsey's going to do a good job. As I was mentioning, he's amazing against number one wide receivers. And as good as it... Sorry?
Except Deebo Samuel. Put some respect on the 9.
All right, maybe. I mean, Deebo does do a good job. I'll give you that. But Devontae Adams, as good as he is, and the chemistry that Rodgers has, Ramsey's going to put in work against him. This is going to be a big focus of their defense. They're going to want to stop Adams, that connection. And I think he's going to be held down a bit, And I like the receptions look because I could see him getting one big play. And that's what happened with Metcalf last week. Metcalf did have a couple big plays. But if you got his under receptions at the closing line, you hit under 6.5. He only ended up having 5 or 6. So, that line does get inflated. So wait till game day. People are going to take the Devontae Adams anytime touchdown. They're going to take the over receptions as they always do. And then what you're going to do is slide it on the under and probably cash. That's how you make a good contrarian bet and look where the value is, where most people aren't looking. And the other one...
Also, if you guys want to see what Jalen Ramsey does to these big wide receivers, Eddie, throw in that clip right now of the frustrated DK Metcalf. You can see for yourself firsthand what Jalen Ramsey does to these wide receivers out there.
Wow. When DK Metcalf came over to the sideline, you see it right here. Threw his helmet, had some words. And this is something we talked to Brian Schottenheimer about.
Yeah, you'll see that in motion in that clip for sure. And the last prop I'm going to look at is Cam Akers over 69.5 rushing yards. So it was just announced today, Jared Goff is going to be starting over Walford, which, kind of a toss-up. I don't think there's a huge difference between them. Obviously, Goff has that thumb thing. And so I think a big focus is going to be rushing the ball. Even if they're down, I think Sean McVay is going to be adamant about giving Akers that ball. And the Packers' run defense isn't all that special. Derrick Henry wasn't great in that game, but those Titans didn't want to be in the cold. The Rams are going to be in a playoff mode, and I think Akers is going to pound the rock. Last week he had, 130 or something or other. So I want over 69.5. I think there's a lot of value there. I think he gets near 100 again if I had to predict. So I think there's value there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had his under rushing yards last week. And,
so did I.
He beat that in the second quarter. So
yeah,
definitely some value to be had there with Cam Akers, especially against that pretty suspect Packers defense against the run at least. But moving into our final pick, our joint pick for this week. Hopefully we're looking to bounce back. We're going to change it up a little bit. No more spreads this week for our joint pick. We're hopping on the Saints money line, minus 160. So what this means is Saints just have to win the game. We're taking the Saints to beat the Bucs. There's some good value at minus 160. The spread at minus 3 was paying out about minus 115. So you're only losing about minus 30, 40 points here with this minus 160. And I think might be a bit of a safer bet. I don't know. We'll see. But like Jack said, touched on it a bit earlier in his underreactions. The Saints have torched them in the past. Devin White's coming back from the COVID list, but we don't know how he's going to be performing for the Bucs. I feel like they have some COVID issues still going on there. I've seen a couple other linebackers go on the COVID list. Mike Evans is still banged up, so it's definitely a good spot for the Saints here. Michael Thomas is well rested. Kamara, he had a week to recover from COVID. Now he's back and ready to go. So I definitely think we see the Saints pull this one off. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucs win, but I think the value here is with the Saints money line.
I agree, and like you said, I think the money line offers a lot of value because the 3 might get dicey. I think you might be looking at a push there. There's very likely that Brady backdoor. Maybe the officials do what they do with Brady and give him some generous calls or something. But they might also do that with Breeze because it's his swan song retirement year. So that's another angle for I don't know if Breeze is going to go out this year. They have a ton of weapons, and Marshawn Lattimore usually locks up Mike Evans, as you said. He has a lot of trouble with him.
And Mike Evans and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. We'll see if he gets tossed, if someone gets tossed again. We saw it last week happen with the Bears. See if Mike Evans and him love to go at it, so we'll see what happens.
For sure. I mean, as you can see, the Saints are already in the Bucs' head, so I think the money line is going to be a good look. Yeah, I think we've got some strong picks this week. Cam, you want to close us out? But best of luck to everyone with your bets.
Of course, yeah, like Jack said, we got some picks we're pretty confident with this week. NBA, we're going to touch on a little bit more in the future, but it's a little dicey week because, we got some COVID issues.
Right.
Got to mention the James Harden trade, of course. Lots of movement going on in the NBA. Victor Oladipo, all that kind of stuff going on right now. Touch on it more in the future, but we have to get some NHL picks in, first weekend back. We're so excited to have the NHL back. We've got a great weekend of football lined up. Last week was kind of a bit of a letdown with the wild card games. We got some great matchups on paper this week, so we're pretty fired up for that, as you can tell. We're pretty excited to watch some football, watch some hockey, watch some basketball. Enjoy these next few weeks, everybody, because NFL's gonna be gone for like 8 months after that. We don't know when it's gonna be back. So enjoy these next few months. It's not very often we get to see NHL every night, NBA every night, NFL weekends. So make sure you guys enjoy those. Make sure you go vote for us, spacesmag.ca/awards. Don't forget to subscribe. We're watching, guys. We're watching. We want to keep that subscriber count going up. Let's get 100 subscribers as soon as we can. Make sure to go like this video, comment down below, and hopefully we can give you guys some free money this week. Peace.
Yeah, I'm leaving. Ice on me, man. I got diamonds, but they say that I don't need them. She gon' need me when she need me. I've been rolling through my thoughts, and you can